What makes a movie truly terrifying? Is it the jump scare, the suspense, or the build-up? For some people, it's the gore. For others, it's mystery. But in my opinion, the scariest movies mix all of them. Because, let's be honest, as humans, we're terrified of the unknown, right? And that's the secret. Keep the terror hidden, mysterious, catch you off guard, build the suspense, build it more, and then, boom, heart attack moment. But here's the real question. Who does it best? Most horror fans agree, The Exorcist 1973 nailed that formula. Atmosphere, mystery, fear you can't escape. Since then, a few films came close, like The Conjuring 2013, Hereditary 2018, Sinister 2012, Texas Chainsaw Massacre 1974, and The Shining 1980. Different styles, sure, but equally terrifying. You ever think about that? I mean, The Exorcist and Texas Chainsaw Massacre are nothing alike, but both leave you shaking. Why? It's how they control the fear. A wise man once said,
We control the fear. And without the fear, we are all as good as dead.
They start with atmosphere, add mystery, layer suspense, more and more, until they can barely breathe. And then, boom, jump scare, blood, terror. That's a perfect horror formula. And now that we've cracked it, let's dive into the top 10 most terrifying horror movies of 2025 so far. Welcome to Hitchcock's Picks, I'm Dave. Quick heads up, nothing in this list hits Exorcist 1973 level, at least not yet, but I promise there are some terrifying options here you'll want to watch this week. Let's start with number 10. Dead Male, a supernatural horror. The movie follows Jasper, who has spent years working behind the scenes in the forgotten corners of the Postal Service, sorting through letters with no destination, what they call dead mail. But everything changes the day a blood-stained envelope slides across his desk, stamped with a desperate plea for help and no-return address. What starts as another lost letter spirals into a deadly mystery. The deeper Jasper digs, the more the shadows around him close in, and the more twisted the truth becomes. Dead Male doesn't rely on cheap gore or constant jump scares. Instead, it masterfully builds the suspense layer by layer, turning everyday places into traps of paranoia. The gore is subtle but disturbing when it appears, and the real fear comes from the unknown, the creeping sense that something has already gone terribly wrong, and Jasper is next. It's not the loudest or bloodiest horror of the year, but the atmosphere, the slow, suffocating build-up, and the haunting mystery earn Dead Male the number 10 spot. With a scare factor of 6 out of 10, it is tense, eerie, and perfect for fans of unsettling psychological horror. If you're loving these picks, hit like and subscribe. More killer recommendations are coming your way.
We should not be here.
Number 9. The Damned, a Nordic Gothic horror. Damned follows Eva, a young widow managing a remote Arctic fishing outpost during a brutal winter, isolated from the nearest village by snow-covered mountains. As supplies dwindle, Eva and her crew face starvation and desperation. When a shipwreck occurs nearby, they must decide between risking their own survival or helping the survivors, a choice that spirals into chaos. Suspense grows relentlessly with the strange occurrences and eerie visions haunting Eva, blending Nordic folklore about revenant creatures known as Drugger, with the crushing weight of isolation and paranoia. The build-up is slow but merciless, turning everyday survival into a nightmare. Gore appears realistically with disturbing scenes, like corpses washed ashore carrying live eels, and violent conflicts erupting among the crew as their grip on reality frays. Jump scares are rare but effective, emerging from the tension-filled, quiet, and eerie atmosphere that permeates the film. This blend of psychological terror, folklore, and raw human desperation earns the Damned the number 9 spot, a haunting, intense experience that lingers long after the credits roll. The scare factor for this one is 6.2 out of 10. It's really chilling, atmospheric, and deeply unsettling.
Send me a distress call. What do you remember?
Just moments.
We need answers.
Number 8. Ash, a supernatural psychological horror. Ash throws you into the lonely shoes of Rhea, an astronaut waking up in a cold, silent research station on a distant alien planet with no memory of how she got there. A mix of lost memory, aliens, and space. The station is decaying, corpses are scattered, and every corner hides a shadow of something terrible. Rhea's struggle is as much inside her mind as it is against the mysterious forces surrounding her. Nightmarish flashbacks slice through reality, showing glimpses of her lost crew and terrifying events she can't fully remember. The tension tightens with every discovery, the sense of isolation crushing. Suspense builds in tight, claustrophobic corridors with flickering lights and eerie silence that breaks only with sudden, brutal moments of gore and violence. Jump scares don't flood the screen, but when they hit, they explode from the quiet, making your heart leap. This film expertly mixes sci-fi mystery and supernatural horror, making you question what's real and what's in Rhea's fractured mind. Ash stands at number 8 for its intense atmosphere, psychological twists, and relentless build-up that keeps you on edge until the final frame. We're gonna score it a 6.5 out of 10 on the scare factor. It is a thrilling mix of dread, shocks, and haunting visuals that won't let go. Number 8. Nosferatu, a surreal vampire horror. Nosferatu is about Ellen, a young woman whose lonely prayers unknowingly summon the terrifying Count Orlok, a vampire whose dark presence haunts her life and those around her. As Ellen's husband, Thomas, travels to the remote Transylvanian mountains to sell a mysterious manor to Orlok, eerie warnings and unsettling visions shadow every step. The film layers suspense with chilling scenes of supernatural terror and a creeping sense of dread that builds relentlessly. The horror here is a surreal blend of psychological tension and brutal gore, from the plague-ridden rats that follow Orlok's ship to the devastating impact his curse brings to the town. Jump scares hit rarely, but with shocking force, emerging from the deepening shadows and nightmares that plague the characters. Nosferatu claims the number 7 spot for its haunting atmosphere, unrelenting build-up, and a surreal style that turns classic vampire horror into a chilling, unforgettable nightmare. It gets a 6.9 out of 10 on the scare factor. It is eerie, intense, and unsettling in every frame.
I don't feel especially fucked to have.
Number 6. The Monkey. I could say a Stephen King horror. The Monkey centers on Hal Shelburne, a man haunted by a sinister wind-up toy monkey tied to a legacy of brutal deaths. After a childhood marked by tragedy, Hal's family struggles are reignited when the cursed monkey reappears, sparking a wave of bizarre and violent accidents in their quiet town. Suspense claws its way through every scene. The monkey's ominous drumming triggers a relentless buildup of dread that tightens like a noose. Gore is visceral and shocking, from accidental decapitations to explosive deaths, making it a true Stephen King nightmare come to life. Jump scares are sharp and unexpected, breaking long stretches of mounting tension with brutal jolts that keep viewers off balance. This film earns the number 6 spot for its masterful mix of supernatural horror and relentless gore, a terrifying tale where every beat of the monkey's drum echoes impending doom. The score factor for it is a 6.9 out of 10. It's gruesome, intense, and relentlessly suspenseful.
6, 11, 5, 9 and 20 miles today for...
Number 5 on the list, 28 years later, 2025. A post-apocalyptic horror. It's impossible to talk about 28 years later without mentioning the legacy. The original 28 days later in 2003. An absolute game changer. Gritty, raw and terrifying. I mean, a redefined zombie horror with that viral rage-fueled nightmare. Now, 2 decades later, the world of 28 years later is bleaker, meaner, and even more terrifying. The story follows Spike, a young boy born into this collapsed world, where the rage virus has wiped Britain off the map, leaving survivors clinging to isolated pockets of safety. But when Spike ventures onto the mainland with his father, the nightmare truly begins. The build-up here is masterful, quiet, flooded tones, shadows creeping in every corner, the infected lurking, faster, stronger and smarter than ever. You feel the tension coil tighter with every scene. And the gore? Relentless. Savage attacks, shocking deaths, unsettling rituals. It's brutal Stephen King levels of dread meeting modern zombie terror. When the jump scares hit, they slam into you. I mean, raw, unexpected, and earned through razor-sharp suspense. 28 years later lands at number 5 on this list because it respects its roots while dialing up the horror, the atmosphere, and the tension to a whole new level. We're gonna score it a 7 out of 10 on the scare factor. It's brutal, relentless, and dripping with post-apocalyptic fear. Number 4. It Feeds. Supernatural Creeper. It Feeds is all about Riley, a young girl trapped in a nightmare she can't escape. She's convinced something is feeding on her. Not just haunting, it's feeding. Enter Cynthia, a psychiatrist with her own baggage, and Jordan, her clairvoyant daughter. Together, they get pulled into a slow-burning supernatural nightmare where the terror isn't loud. It creeps in, it builds, and it eats away at your nerves. This movie doesn't lean on cheap gore. Instead, it's drenched in suspense. The entity, you barely see it, but you feel it. Every scene drips with dread, that unbearable build-up where you know something's coming, but never when. The jump scares, sharp, well-timed, but what makes It Feeds land at number 4 is the psychological edge, the way it mixes inherited trauma, fear, and the supernatural into a story that stays with you long after the credits roll. We're gonna score it a 7.5 out of 10 on the scare factor. Creeping dread, brutal tension, and that constant sense that you're being watched, or worse, devoured. Number 3. Sinners, a vampire gothic thriller. Sinners drops us straight into the Mississippi Delta of the 1930s, where the blues is raw, the air is thick with smoke, and sometimes the monsters don't hide in the shadows, they walk right through your door. At the heart of this one are Smoke and Stack Moore, twin brothers, war vets, and survivors of Chicago's bloody streets. They've returned home, chasing a dream, building a blues joint for their struggling community. But when you open the door to music, you never know what else might come crawling in. Enter Remick, a cold ancient vampire with his own twisted motives. From the moment his pale face shows up, the tension ramps. The music turns haunting, shadows stretch longer, and you know this tone's got a reckoning coming. Now, let me be real with you. Sinners is not your classic scare a minute slasher. This one's soaked in atmosphere, gothic dread, and a slow burn suspense. There's blood, betrayal, and some genuinely vicious moments. But if you love vampire flicks with rich storytelling and deep southern gothic vibes, this one delivers. If you're not into vampire thrillers though, it might lean more on the dramatic side than terrifying. For die-hard vampire fans, you'll love it. For everyone else, more thriller than pure horror. So we're gonna score it a 7.8 out of 10. It's intense atmosphere, a strong build-up, brutal moments, but it hits hardest if you're a fan of vampire horror. Number 2. The Ugly Sister, a fairy tale body horror. The Ugly Sister is where childhood fairy tales meet raw, gut-wrenching reality, and trust me, this one gets under your skin. The film follows Elvira, a girl suffocating under society's obsession with perfection, after her family loses everything, her only ticket to survival: marry the prince. But when your looks don't fit the fantasy, the price of beauty becomes horrifying. Starving herself with tapeworms, enduring backroom cosmetic surgeries, Elvira's descent into the grotesque is a brutal metaphor for today's distorted standards of beauty. Think The Substance from 2024 movie. That same biting critic of how women's bodies are commodified, pushed, broken. But this time wrapped in the velvet, blood-soaked nightmare of a dark Danish fairy tale. But the body horror is disturbing. The build-up, relentless. And while this isn't your typical jump-scare heavy horror, the psychological discomfort and social commentary make it impossible to look away. This film might not terrify everyone, but its bold, disgusting creativity earns it the number 2 spot, easily one of the most thought-provoking horror films of 2025. The scare factor for it would be an 8 out of 10 for body horror lovers. More discomfort than jump scares, but its message, it lingers long after the credits roll. And number 1, Bring Her Back, an occult family horror. Bring Her Back is exactly why I started this list, by mentioning the rare horror films that stay with you long after the movie ends. The ones that claw their way into your mind and refuse to leave. From the director of Talk to Me 2022, and without question, this is the most disturbing, meticulously crafted horror experience of 2025 so far, by far. This story follows Andy, a 17-year-old grappling with the loss of his father, determined to protect his blind stepsister, Piper. But after being placed in the care of Laura, a grieving, unnerving guardian, the line between family, obsession, and pure horror begins to blur fast. What makes Bring Her Back stand out isn't just the slow burn psychological dread, much like Hereditary 2018, or the occult undercurrent reminiscent of The Exorcist 1973. It's how this movie blends everything. Supernatural horror, family trauma, cult rituals, and yes, found footage elements cleverly woven in through old VHS tapes that reveal Laura's obsession with resurrection. The tension is relentless. The build-up is masterful. Every layer, the eerie home videos, the possession, the twisted family dynamic crashes together to deliver a finale that's not just shocking, it's suffocating. Bring Her Back doesn't rely on cheap jump scares. It weaponizes atmosphere, dread, and the creeping realization that love, grief, and horror can be a deadly mix. That's why this one earns its place at number 1. It's the perfect cocktail of occult terror, psychological breakdown, supernatural fear, and that gut punch of family drama, all working together to make sure you don't sleep tonight. The scare factor for it would be a 9 out of 10. A24 at its unsettling best, found footage cult horror psychological trauma, and supernatural dread combined into one of the most disturbing films of the year so far, by far. Now, before we wrap this up, there were a few movies that didn't quite crack the top 10, but they still deserve your attention. Maybe they weren't the scariest, maybe they leaned more into thriller, dark comedy, or artsy weirdness. But if you love horror, you'll want these on your radar. Let's hit them fast and to the point. Honorable mentions. Number 1, The Rule of Jenny Penn. An aging judge trapped in a care home faces relentless psychological torment from a twisted bully and a creepy puppet called Jenny Penn. This one's unsettling, not the scariest, but if you love slow burn, character-driven dread with real-world horror vibes, it's worth your time. Number 2, Presence. A grieving family, a haunted house, and an unseen force tied to a tragic past. Presence mixes ghost story tension with heavy family drama. It's atmospheric, eerie, and builds great paranoia, but leans more thriller than pure horror. Still, the finale packs a punch. Number 3, Companion. An AI horror comedy. A robot girlfriend discovers she's part of a twisted scam, breaks her code, and unleashes chaos. Think Megan, with more blood and way darker humor. Not terrifying, but for fans of tech horror and pitch black satire, this one delivers in spades. Number 4, Dangerous Animals. A shark attack survivor turned serial killer. Yeah. Tucker feeds his victims to the sharks and records the whole thing. Over the top? Absolutely. But for creature feature lovers who like gore with their ocean thrills, it's pure OZ madness. Number 5, Final Destination Bloodlines. Death's back with creative kills and gallons of blood. But let's be honest, nothing tops the 2000 original. They focus more on gore than suspense this time. Fun for franchise fans, but it's not redefining the series. Number 6, The Girl with a Needle. Set in 1919, Copenhagen, a desperate mother, an underground baby trade, and a shocking body horror twist. It's haunting, slow, grim. Not for everyone, to be honest, but if The Witch or Saint Maud is your thing, this one's creeps under your skin. Alright, that's it. The scariest, weirdest, bloodiest horror movies 2025 has cursed us with so far. I did the digging, I watched the nightmares, so you don't have to accidentally waste 2 hours on a bad one. I mean, if you got even one good recommendation today, do me a solid, hit that like button, drop a comment, and subscribe to the channel. It helps more horror fans like you find these videos, and honestly, I deserve it after surviving the monkey and bring her back. As always, this is Hitchcock Speaks. I'm Dave, your movie addicted host. Catch you in the next one. Stay spooky.